Hello and welcome to Cinemaholics, where we review the biggest and best films coming to theaters and streaming online. One of us is a film critic, one is a casual moviegoer, and the third person is me, your host, John Negroni from the Internet, California. From the Internet, Pennsylvania, he's our film critic. He's also our pop culture writer. It's Will Ashton.
Hey.
And unfortunately, our casual moviegoer couldn't make it this week. And Maverick Hines, he'd like it that way because he is not even close to a Harry Potter fan. Didn't even watch the first Fantastic Beasts movie.
No.
There was no way we were going to get him to watch it. And we knew he'd be lost watching the sequel. So we brought in a ringer, I guess.
Yeah.
We brought in somebody who does love Harry Potter, probably more than you and me. I don't know you and me combined, actually. Maybe we can ask him. But he's the co-host of the Bacon and Eggs podcast. He's from the Internet, Virginia. And, my nickname for him is the indie comedy of the Super Carlin brothers. It's Tyler Carlin.
Hello. Good to be here. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Probably bigger than I would like if we were to rank Harry Potter. Like, how people talk about how they're a Tolkien scholar if they're huge into Lord of the Rings and like they read the Silmarillion and all that.
Yeah, you're quit calling me that, but yes.
Yeah, I would call myself a Rowling scholar.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah,
it sounds like Ivy League.
Yes, yeah. I feel like I would be in the 90th percentile of Potter fans.
Yeah, I had a feeling, and I know, Will, you like the Harry Potters, and I like the movies too, but definitely, we'll get to it. We're talking about Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald in this week's show. And then later we're going to be getting into so many mini reviews. Don't worry, we've got you covered. We're talking about The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the new Coen Brothers film on Netflix. We're talking Instant Family, Can You Ever Forgive Me? Maybe a couple other surprises. It's a packed episode for sure. But we have a quick announcement before we get into our featured review. So we teased this last week. But, Cinemaholics, we're an indie podcast. We went indie a few months ago, kind of broke off on our own. But we are officially doing a new partnership with Atom Tickets. Atom Tickets is the ticketing social platform that lets you buy movie tickets through a smartphone app. It's backed by some huge studios. I've been using the service for months now, and we actually started a partnership with them, which means that you can find episodes of Cinemaholics on their new website, Atom Insider. And you'll be, when you go to Atom Insider to start reading some of the articles coming out on there, including Cinemaholics, you'll find that one of our best friends of the podcast, Alicia Grauso, is the author of said articles because she was one of the reasons we could put this together. So thank you, Alicia, for doing this partnership with us. Yeah. Will, have you ever used Atom Tickets? I've been using it for a while.
I have not. I will have to start now that they are our partners.
Yeah, they're great because they're so cool because you can actually, like, every 5 movie tickets, you get a free one. It links with you if you have AMC A-List like I do. I'm able to do my rewards through that. So, like, I can do it all, like, through one app if I want to see everything, basically. I don't have to just use the AMC app, which is really convenient. And my favorite thing, and Tyler, you'll appreciate this, I was in Virginia, and I was in my hometown visiting, and they had Atom Tickets set up there. And they have this cool feature at participating theaters where you can reserve your concessions ahead of time. It was the Regal in Lynchburg, which isn't too far from where you're at. And I think you have a Regal as well, not too far from you, that might have the same thing. But you can order your concessions ahead of time so they're ready for you when you get to the theater. And, like, I got to say, like, I felt like the red carpet underneath my feet was, like, going wherever I went. It was amazing.
And that's the dream for film fans, is to be on our own red carpet. Mm-hmm. Now, that does bring up an important question. You guys are, really into film. Do you typically do concessions when you go to the theater?
We do. We haven't talked about it in a little while.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah. We had an extended conversation about this, I think last year, right? Around this time. I forget what episode that was. But yeah, we tried.
I wish we could point our listeners to it, but I can't remember either.
Yeah. Was it Justice League?
I don't know how you would possibly know that, but sure, maybe. But I always get concessions, like, depending on the theater. Tyler, this is a good, like, break you in a little bit. I was going to ask you your Hogwarts house, and or Patronus, and or Ilvermorny house, but concession wise, what's your setup?
Concessions, I typically do just the standard. I do like a large popcorn with butter and then a small drink because it's like 40 ounces for a small, and that's more than enough. And if you tell them to do light ice, they will, and then you save so much money. So I do popcorn and a drink. What do you do?
Oh, I'm the opposite, the inverse. I do a small popcorn, no butter, maybe seasonings if they have it, and then I do a regular drink. So usually in the middle, whatever that is.
Yeah, like a medium, I think is what that's called. A grande at Starbucks, but they don't show movies there.
And
not yet.
And Will, you put like candy in your popcorn, don't you?
No, I never said that.
I was just thinking of Whiplash for some reason.
Oh man, I've heard that's good though. Someone was telling me about that.
I do it all the time. I was just projecting.
What's it? There's a certain candy you put in popcorn that like it helps. Like
there's a lot. Bunch of Crunch, like, peanut M&Ms, regular M&Ms, Milk Duds.
Milk Duds, I think it is, because it like if your popcorn gets stuck to your tooth, like it takes it out, I guess, or something. There, someone was trying to explain this to me. But,
I think it digs it even further.
Yeah, I
was gonna say
cement it in.
That's why I thought.
This is a very
like,
optimistic
when they said that,
friend of yours.
That's what I thought. But I was like, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's their thing, whatever. But yeah.
All right, well, let's get into our featured review of Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. I still want to know, though, Tyler, so now that we're in Harry Potter territory, first I'll explain. This is the sequel to the prequel, so it's a prequel sequel for the Harry Potter franchise, of course, the famous books by J.K. Rowling. That said, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have watched all the Harry Potter films to have watched the first Fantastic Beasts, but I would, and get enjoyment out of it. To get the full enjoyment out of it, yeah, you need to be a Harry Potter fan, I think. But if just to appreciate it as a movie, sure, you can just watch Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Came out 2 years ago, and this is the direct sequel to that. Picks up right after that film. And I would say you have to watch the first Fantastic Beasts movie to watch this new one. That said, Tyler, we got to know your Hogwarts house. How should people prejudge your opinions based on your category?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a Ravenclaw, which is like the wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure. So, it's all about like
people were already calling you that.
And,
so
right. I don't know what that does to affect my opinion. I do think I go into this with more of you have to make a good film before I'm going to be able to buy into the mythology if it's going to be a film-based franchise. And just like saying that going in, I think that this movie has clear issues that prevent me from, like, the big fan service moments didn't land with me because already the film wasn't what I was expecting, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Well, let's cover real quick. This is directed once again by David Yates. He's done every Harry Potter movie, including Fantastic Beasts, since Order of the Phoenix, which was 12 years ago. And I just cannot believe this guy is still making Harry Potter movies. I mean, it's just... there's got to be a phone book or something. They can like look up other people who can take this on. Because, it used to be a franchise like Mission Impossible where you would have different directors kind of coming in and out. I think Chris Columbus did the first two, and then Alfonso Cuarón, really put some life into the series.
Oh my God, so good.
So that said, they went through a few directors before they settled on Yates. This new one once again stars Eddie Redmayne. He is once again Newt Scamander, who is called a magizoologist. He has a suitcase full of Fantastic Beasts that help him on his adventures. He's also joined by Catherine Waterston, his they kind of girlfriend, sort of, Tina. There's also Dan Fogler, who's back as Kowalski. Alison Sudol is back, of course, as Queenie. Carmen Ejogo is in this again. Zoe Kravitz, Ezra Miller, Johnny Depp, Claudia Kim. Callum Turner, I was surprised to see him. I missed him in the trailers or something. He plays Newt's brother. And then finally, Jude Law plays a young Albus Dumbledore. Okay, so Tyler, kind of got your reaction, your initial reaction. But Will, walk us through, like, what is this movie about? And what did you think of the first Fantastic Beasts going in this one?
That's the guy who knows the least about Harry Potter what it's about. Where do you begin? Like, it's like you said, it's a prequel sequel. It's kind of continuing off where the last film ended, where we find out that Johnny Depp is Grindelwald and he has this very nefarious scheme that he's cooking up, and the movie is about, I think, 80% exposition.
And I will say, it is bold for your plot twist to be a casting decision. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then the twist in this one, I won't say it now, but it's like... I don't know if it's like a name drop or if it's just like a nod to the fans. I don't know what you would.
It's intertextuality. It's like you should care about this because of symbolism, not because of what it matters. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really pack a punch. At least for me, it just felt like, oh, okay, so we can go home now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Should I just go into my thoughts of the film, or is that
Let's do it.
The worst plot description in the world? I hope you can.
Well, because it's hard to say what the plot of The Crimes of Grindelwald is, because it's. Oh, yeah, go ahead. I think you got this.
No, I think you should go ahead with this plot.
I just think it's a convoluted plot. Like, I don't think everyone goes to Paris to find each other. Like, that's all it is.
Right. It definitely feels like, I think even more so than the last one, it feels like a plot that came from a novelist. Just because it's a lot of like setup, and it's a lot of like people like either set up for the next films or set up for like what's going to happen in a couple scenes later. Like characters just like, hey, you got to go to this place, or like, hey, this is who I am. You'll have to remember that later. Put a bookmark in this. And then it's just like, just like a lot of like people explaining themselves or explaining what's happening or explaining what they need to do. And it's not really like, it doesn't really feel fulfilling because it's not like meaningful or developing the plot. Or it's developing the plot, but it's not developing the characters very well. And it's just like, okay, it's very overwhelming and at the same time very underwhelming. So I guess it's just a very whelming experience. Yeah, as Clueless once said.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's got a lot of twists and turns and red herrings that aren't satisfying when you get the truth about them. Like John Cornell's character goes through the whole movie and I didn't care about him at all, and then by the end of it he does this like whole 10-minute reveal, and then a different character's like, oh, that's actually not true. And then what are you supposed to believe? What is supposed to be valuable? It's very confusing.
Right, and I kept wondering, is he an important character? Is he just another character that's going to be like poofed off screen at any moment? Right. There are two movies I thought about during this. First of all, well, I'm pretty sure the Can You Ever Just Be Whelmed? Isn't that 10 Things I Hate About You? Not Clueless.
Oh, my bad. I'm accept my 90s to early 2000 teenage films.
Early 2000s, but I'll allow it. Those movies. One of those movies is my favorite. The other is my second favorite. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, there were two movies I thought about during this one. The first one was, I think, the most obvious, and the Star Wars prequels. I wasn't surprised to see, after I watched this movie, I stayed away from reviews. I didn't read any, didn't watch any videos or anything like that. Then I went into it and it was like I was telling you off the air, I feel like everybody keeps invoking the Star Wars prequels in this. A lot of those problems in Attack of the Clones, Phantom Menace, where it's just, like we're saying, lots of the next one's going to be where the stuff really goes down, and it's
the next one's where it makes sense.
Yeah. It's more about twisty lore than it is about a story that is survivable on its own. But then that brings me to the second movie I thought of, which kind of similar, is the second Pirates of the Caribbean movie, The Dead Man's Chest, because that movie was very similar to how it takes, kind of a standalone movie in the first one to an extent. I think the first Pirates of the Caribbean is a standalone movie and should be treated as such, honestly.
So good.
Really terrific on its own. And then the second one, they sort of double everything, right? They double all the lore, the mythology. It becomes very overwhelming. But what kind of saves that movie is at least the set pieces are very thrilling. I can point to so many moments and set pieces in Dead Man's Chest that are just so great to watch that you don't really care. You don't know what's going on, honestly. And the lore is so insane. Crimes of Grindelwald, there's not one set piece I can point to here that has that spark of life that's just entertaining on its own. I can maybe point to a few things, but Tyler, was there anything in Fantastic Beasts that kind of got your heart racing a little bit, or maybe kind of reminded you why you love Harry Potter?
Well, there was actually a lot of, Willie, you were talking about earlier, the movie was 80% exposition, but it was the wrong exposition. One of the great things about Harry Potter is that they're at school and you're learning about the magic. And in this one, Newt's the only one that casts the spells, but he mumbles all of them, so you can't hear a word he's saying. Everybody else is just waving a wand and magic things are happening. I don't get to learn about the Fantastic Beasts, which is, Newt's he's writing a textbook. That's what the whole idea is. when they get to Hogwarts in their first year, the book they read is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them for their Care of Magical Creatures course. And I don't feel like I'm learning anything about these creatures. I just feel like they're there. And that was sort of when they went into the case into the first one, that was like such an exciting scene to get to learn about all of these different animals and how they're different and see sort of Rowling's creativity and all that stuff. And in this one, you just don't get that. And to, draw that comparison back to Dead Man's Chest, the scene that gets your heart pumping, like that immediately comes to my mind, is when they're in the wheel having the sword fight.
Oh yes,
Mm-hmm.
When the
You know what I'm
music
talking
swells. Oh yes,
Right. And you can figure everything out based on just, okay, they're in this wheel and they're battling with swords, and it's sort of this like Mexican standoff, and it's all sort of self-explanatory. But in Crimes of Grindelwald, the scene that comes to mind is when they're in the, I guess, French Ministry of Magic. I guess that's where they're at. And the little cat things show up and they're like running from them. I don't know how all the pieces are supposed to move. I don't know who's a villain of who. I don't know who's fighting with each other. Is Theseus a bad guy? I can't really tell. Who's that other Auror that's killing people? Why are the good wizards killing people? Like, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
I do want to say it because I want to give this movie some credit for a couple of things. Even though I'm just going to say it, I think this movie's terrible. I honestly, I think it's a crime for this movie to exist. But I was also not a huge fan of the first Fantastic Beasts, and I remember that movie comes out, and a lot of people really love it, and I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable for liking that movie. I don't think it's wrong. So like the first Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I revisited it last week. And it's just not for me. It just wasn't a story that really worked for me. And the big issue I had with the first one was kind of what you touched on, Tyler, which was just Newt as a character. I didn't love him. I didn't get him. I just thought he was like a weird, quirky dude, and we just never had a moment that really solidified like why we should care about him. He just, to me, and I told you, Tyler, this, I think, to me, he was like a character sheet on Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, here are your abilities, here's your backstory and motivations, and then you put him into a campaign that has nothing to do with any of that. And that's what that's what he feels like. He doesn't feel like this is his story, and it's weird to go from Harry Potter, where it's the complete opposite, where that story is catered around him as a character. And I don't know. I think that what Crimes of Grindelwald does, it has the same problem where he shouldn't be here. They try to insert these things where it's like, oh, he's a rebellious student, he doesn't fit the mold, and that's why Dumbledore has hired him to do this, which I call nonsense on a little bit, but at the same time, I kind of like the idea of like, he's not your typical Auror. He is an unconventional wizard that they bring in to sort of try to do this thing. And fine, I think I can get part way through the movie with that. But what I do like about Crimes of Grindelwald, what it does that the first Fantastic Beast did not do for me, is it did actually make me like Newt a little bit more. I thought that, like, even though he still mumbles his way through the movie, he had more moments where I was empathizing with him a little bit. Like he had a thing where he actually seemed to like Tina now, and so was actually like behaving like he liked her and like had wants and goals that were more than just bringing a bird to Arizona. So on that note, I will say, okay, I like it a little better, but then that's completely tossed out by the fact that they ruined my favorite character from the first movie, which was Queenie. Queenie was the only character in Fantastic Beasts that I liked, that I was like, when she showed up in that movie, when she shows up for the breakout scene where they're breaking out Tina and Newt from Makusa, which got rebranded for some reason in this movie. Queenie, like, going through that like mini heist was like my favorite part. And in this movie, they turned her into just, I don't even know, like they just completely ruined her. It's a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 problem, where like in the first film you had Drax as this amazing and interesting character, and then in the second one, and they did this with Queenie and Kowalski, they just double down on everything they think made them interesting and get rid of all the nuance of the character, and all of a sudden you've got this blithering idiot in both of them that does absolutely nothing useful to the story. Well, you know we disagree on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but I'll let you have it. Will, is there anything you liked in Crimes of Grindelwald? I know some people have been praising Johnny Depp's performance, which I find laughable, honestly.
Yeah, I was not going to say that.
I don't.
No, actually, the main thing I did really like about this film was Jude Law. I thought he was really good in this. I thought he was charming, and I thought he was able to capture a lot of the mannerisms from both the Dumbledore actors.
I wanted more of him
in a way. In a way that was, respectful, but at the same time, I think he made the performance his own. And yeah, I mean, like you said, I wanted more of him. Like, I think when he was on, I was like, oh, this is fun. Like, I'm kind of getting interested in this again. Then he left. I was like, oh, okay. I guess back to more plotting.
Yeah, right. I guess I understand why they didn't just make a Dumbledore trilogy. Instead, Newt is kind of our cipher into this time. I kind of get that.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't want it. But at this, I do actually kind of like, the idea behind it. This is a franchise with good ideas, but they just aren't executed very well, in my opinion. And yeah, what did you think of Dumbledore, Tyler?
I can't believe you guys didn't like Johnny Depp. I thought he was a shining performance in this.
Oh, really?
There was only like one moment in the whole movie where I was like, "That's Captain Jack Sparrow." But other than that, I was like, "This is good. I like what he's doing here."
I thought didn't get what he was.
I thought his little like Hitler speech at the end was really good. That more about writing than about his performance, but I thought it was delivered well. As far as Jude Law as Dumbledore goes, I actually don't think that I saw a lot of the mannerisms of the other two actors who portrayed Dumbledore, but I know that, for Rowling, this is like her favorite character. And I think basically what happened was she like wrote 6 books about Harry Potter. And then if you remember in the 7th book, if you guys are fans of the book series, it's just like there's like 6 chapters that are just about Dumbledore's life and growing up and everything. And all of a sudden she was like, wait a minute, I may have written a more interesting character. But she didn't, is the thing. Like, Harry is by far the most interesting, and there's a reason the story's about him.
But there is potential, right? Like, I totally agree with, like, and I like Dumbledore's backstory. I mean, that's one of the things about the 7th book that really makes it kind of come around, because it's so much camping and everything. But then when Harry starts to learn about like what Dumbledore went through, the sort of implied stuff between him and Grindelwald, which, famously later on, J.K. Rowling was like, oh, Dumbledore was gay. So that kind of like factored into.
Yeah. That they do hint in this film that he is gay, which I don't think. Well, they did.
I thought for sure there was like a clear, like him and Grindelwald were like lovers, not friends.
I'm not counting on the next movie, because the next movie I guess is supposed to be more Dumbledore, but I don't know. I think that they're going to be too shy about it. I think it's just going to keep.
I mean, they were shy about it. I mean, to be fair, they were shy about it, but they didn't shy completely away from it. That's my point.
Yeah, I agree completely. I do kind of agree that Dumbledore's backstory is interesting, and I'm just confused as to, because J.K. Rowling did the screenplay for this, and I love J.K. Rowling. Sometimes she makes me very angry, with like some of her statements and a lot of her positions on things. Like, but that's not her art. I think her art with the Harry Potter series, I do love the books. I do love, the movies on balance, but I just don't think she is a polished screenwriter. And I hate to say that, because like, I think she is, borderline genius when it comes to create world building and creating characters. And I see a good movie in here, kind of, or I see like a good story that can happen in this big mess, which it really is. But it's not a 3-act structure. It breaks so many rules that it doesn't earn the credit to break. And I just wish that she had done the story here, like, she did with the Harry Potter films, and it had maybe somebody who's a little bit more seasoned, or maybe a younger writer to come in and turn this into like a functional screenplay. And I really wish they would hire somebody else to direct these films, because I'm sick of David Yates' vision of these films. It's the same thing every time. And like, I'm not saying, he's a bad filmmaker. I think that Order of the Phoenix wasn't very good. Half-Blood Prince was okay. And Deathly Hallows works. But I've never watched one of his films and been like wowed by the magic of Harry Potter. I think to this day, like Prisoner of Azkaban and Goblet of Fire are the 2 best ones. And I think that's because they're more auteur filmmakers who put like new visionary ideas into the movies and like reinterpreted J.K. Rowling. And I think David Yates is safe, and he just does a mediocre thing with it. And I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I would just love, like, bring somebody else in. Like Ava DuVernay, can you imagine if she got her hands on one of these films and one of these stories? Can you imagine if they brought in like screenwriters who like grew up with these books and like love them and are able to like put in that characterization that we've been wanting. That's all I'm going to say. I just think that this is like a mountain of potential that's deep, deep, deep underground, honestly.
So you want Kathleen Kennedy to take the Harry Potter series? And
no.
I mean,
these
just
movies
like
have enough producers.
No, but I guess what I meant was that like kind of similar to like what happened with George Lucas. He's like J.K. Rowling kind of needs to like, I guess, like kind of step back a little bit and give her property to like younger, more like inspired filmmakers, and just kind of take what she made so well and just kind of take the next step elsewhere.
I even thought of like, can you imagine if they did a sequel series about a grown-up Hermione, you know, or if they took like, and I'm just thinking of like how they did Force Awakens and everything like that. But yeah, like, you know, a film that dives into stories that feel a little bit more like they are their own thing. They can kind of go in their own directions. You can do like an Ilvermorny, the American Hogwarts, you know, go back in time and see how that came about. Like that stuff, I don't know. I think that could be interesting. Tyler, do you have any Harry Potter, like, do you have a wish list?
My problem with having a wish list and my problem with like everything you've just said is that the books are so detailed and so oriented, and then you've got Pottermore, which this like, you know, detailed canon encyclopedia that it's so hard to mess with pieces, and it's so hard to give it to someone you don't trust and say, you know, I need you to make sure that everything fits and everything matches exactly with what we've established as canon. But at this point, you know, that's all sort of breaking down because David Yates and apparently Rowling in this film were like, some of that stuff doesn't even matter. Like there were like events and details from the books that are just broken in the movie.
I was going to mention it. Yeah, it isn't as sacrosanct as I think you would expect from like something that's like, yeah, like it is a lot like Lord of the Rings. Like she's creating her own, like whatever that, I forget what that's called, but yeah, his like encyclopedia.
The Silmarillion?
Yeah, I almost called it a simulacrum because I just saw Suspiria, so I was like, that's not what it is. But anyway. Yeah, and they're going to do another, let's see, 3 more movies in the Fantastic Beasts realm.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. I wonder if it's going to happen because so far at the box office, this is sort of disappointing. I mean, we might be speaking too soon, but it needs to make about $400 million in order to break even. This is according to Screen Rant, based on, you know, how the film has been, how much it's been spending on marketing and how expensive it was to make, really. And it's not having the best opening weekend. I think it's at about like I think it's going to gross maybe $100 million by the end of opening weekend. And then we're about to get in like Ralph Breaks the Internet is coming out, Creed 2.
Right.
Green Book, the Widows is kind of siphoning a little bit of box office from this movie. So I wonder, like, if this movie isn't as big of a hit, and also it's taken a beating critically. I don't know. Will, do you see a few more of these movies coming out?
Well, that's the thing, is that like nobody. I think we were talking about this off the air. Nobody seems really like excited about these films. Like no one like after this film, I can't see anyone who's like, oh yeah, like what's gonna happen in that third movie? It's just like either like, yeah, I guess I'll see it when it comes out, but this one really soured me, or it's just like people being really, really mad, just being like, what are they doing? Stop. So that doesn't really seem to bode well for their financial prospects in making 3 other of these films. I would not be surprised if they just make one, like they just combine their ideas into one film and then release that. I don't think they're just going to stop with this one, but I don't know if those other 3 films are going to come to be.
I could totally see that. Yeah, like Divergent, just do one more and like forget that you were going to make the other ones. But I don't know, Tyler, I mean, you have your finger on the pulse of the fans, I think. And I've been on your Discord.
Right.
Are people excited about this? Like so far, like every diehard Potterhead that I know who's seen this has, you know, a few people have liked it. Like they haven't been like, oh, that was terrible. But a lot of them, the enthusiasm kind of died in the past couple of days. What have you seen?
I've actually seen the exact same thing. And that was my biggest red flag with this film and the future of the franchise, was that, you know, in my world, I interact with a lot of like super Harry Potter fans. Mm-hmm. And there's some people that are trying to, I think they're sort of living in denial. They know it wasn't a good film, but they keep saying things like, oh, but it set so many things up. And in the future, we'll look back at this as such a genius setup and all that. And it's like, but okay, but you can't, like, it's just a bad film. Like regardless of all the fiction and stuff that it's setting up for you, like the first act is shot super tight, and then there's a bunch of really bad reshoots. Like, it's just not good. And what I'm seeing is a lot of those diehard fans even coming out and saying this was terrible. I'm offended. Sort of in, like when I was a little young at the time, but when Phantom Menace was released, there was the initial like, oh my God, Star Wars is back. This is amazing. And then one day everybody was like, no, wait a minute. That sucked. Like, that was not even remotely good. It's unwatchable. If you revisit Phantom Menace, it's terrible. It's worse than Attack of the Clones, which was the sequel there.
We've talked about this. We've talked about this before. This is a long-standing John versus Tyler debate.
Okay.
And
he's doing this on purpose. He's like, all right, I'm going to get in Guardians Volume 2 just to make John angry. I'm going to get in Attack of the Clones.
Taking that knife deep into you, John.
Right. But even if you like Attack of the Clones, or even if you like Phantom Menace over Attack of the Clones, they're both literally terrible. Like, they're absolute garbage films.
Yeah, they're bad films.
And when they did that, there was like a guaranteed success. It's like, well, it's Star Wars, so who cares? We'll watch these 3 movies. And then Star Wars was able to do it 4 more times after Revenge of the Sith before they were like, okay, we really need to take a break. And I just don't know where we're at with Harry Potter, what's going to happen next, because honestly, I think there need to be some structural changes in the sort of brain trust. And obviously you can't get rid of JK, but you can get rid of David Yates, like you were saying, and bring in somebody to bring some interesting nuance to the genre and to the story.
Right, yeah. Now that it's starting to affect like their business sentimentalities, right? Because there's a reason they keep hiring him back. It's because the films make a lot of money, and when he's the director. And so I think that they just don't want to mess that up. I mean, Harry Potter for Warner Brothers, Harry Potter has been their golden goose for a long time. And, it doesn't matter if a lot of their films tank each year. They still have the DC movies, and they've got Harry Potter. Those are their 2 big IPs. If Harry Potter starts to falter, you better believe they're going to do structural changes. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Because they have been resistant to big changes even when their films take critical bashings. I mean, just look at the DC Extended Universe. They have been very slow to make sweeping changes structurally. They have, changed things up a bit with like Justice League and, with Wonder Woman and everything like that. But they've also stuck to their guns in a lot of other cases because the films still make a lot of money. With this, it's just a wait and see kind of moment. It's Warner Brothers. They're obviously a studio that is capable of elevating great talent. I just hope that they do that with Harry Potter. With this one, let's get into our final thoughts and grade this thing. Last thing I'll say is just like, I think when this movie reached peak stupidity for me was when you have this moment where like they're trying to tease this character reveal of a character I don't care about, where a character from a future Harry Potter film who wasn't really a character but more of a pet is sort of standing there not saying anything, and then everyone is like, and this is what happened to this person. No, you're wrong. Now let's talk about this for 10 minutes. And then that gets a fake out. And I'm just like, does no one edit these screenplays? Like, does nobody look at this and say, oh, we can clean this up a little bit. We can definitely fix this. It just honestly feels like a blurted out first draft, and it's unfortunate. It really is kind of just a big old stinking mess that's almost kind of glorious to watch in its insanity. But ultimately, this movie committed the unforgivable killing curse on Queenie. Not literally, that's not a spoiler. A character that I had so much goodwill for, who I just think is completely squandered here. And this movie peaks, I guess, with its only set piece that is kind of thrilling and magically interesting is the very first scene where Grindelwald breaks out. That's honestly, for me, that was the only one that I was like, oh, that's interesting. But okay, I give this one a C-. I don't like it. What do you think, Will?
Yeah, I'm not too far behind you. I think it's pretty impressive when you can make magic boring, like in a movie that is filled with spells and people performing magic. Like, it's just so dull.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of Suspiria. Oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
Yeah, but I mean, even
I
on
just
that
said that
point,
to be mean.
No, he's digging the knife into me this time.
Our listeners don't know that I've seen Suspiria since the last week, and that was one of Will's favorite movies of the year, and I don't know.
Maybe my favorite. Yeah, so I actually thought more of the Hobbit films than the prequels, to be honest. I think just because of, and I don't dislike most of the Hobbit films. I like the first two fine, but there was something about them, like how they kind of felt like they need to justify themselves. Like they keep making it more like Lord of the Rings-esque when it should have just been like one contained story about kind of an eccentric character. And that's kind of get the feel I got from this film. Like I'm okay with Newt being the protagonist, but I don't think he needs to be like the world's savior. Like I think he just needs to be an eccentric guy who just finds weird animals. If that's what the film was, like just one standalone film where he finds all these like cool animals, it doesn't really impact much of the narrative of Harry Potter per se, but just kind of is like a fun little movie on its own, I think that would have been enjoyable. And I think the first film was fine because it's a little bit like that, but as it stands, this film, it's just so much of a boring experience that I can't honestly see anyone getting pumped for more of these films. And if they pull the brakes after the next one, I would not be surprised. So I'm between a C and a C minus. I'll give it a low C, just because I don't think it's quite C minus, but yeah, I didn't walk out of this having any fun.
Okay, yeah. I think my minus comes in how it sort of like undermines any goodwill from the first one, which really for me is what pushed me to that. And also, Warner Brothers is capable of making great prequels. We've just cited Lord of the Rings, like not doing great prequels, but then also Rise of the Planet of the Apes, like they made a really great trilogy. Right?
Fox.
Was that Fox, not Warner Brothers?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Still, that's a good blueprint.
Well, I mean, obviously the Batman Begins was a good prequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. So there you go.
Okay. Thank you.
There it is.
There's a good example. All right, Tyler, finish this out.
I'm in that same territory with the C or C minus. I think if I gave you $200 million and this is what you came back with, I would be very upset. And I think just speaking more to the fan thing, it's tough enough. It's going to be tough enough to get the fans to go back to the next one. But I think even that, talking to just the general public, which is what I do on a daily basis, and telling people, oh, I'm going to see the new Harry Potter movie tonight. A lot of people don't even realize this is even a thing, that it's even happening. It's not even on their radar of like, should I see that or not? They're thinking about other films entirely. Mm-hmm. And for that reason, I go for the C minus, honestly, because I was really disappointed with it. And then, Will, you were talking about how it's tough to make magic boring, and that's almost impressive. But you can make a bad movie about magic that isn't boring and has interesting set pieces.
That's true.
And what comes to mind for me is the sequel to Now You See Me with Dan Radcliffe as the villain.
Bold pick.
Because that's got a lot of interesting set pieces, like when they do the card through all of their clothes or whatever, and they pass it around. That's super interesting, and that's a good set piece. But you've got a bad movie there. Mm-hmm. And this just didn't have anything even that interesting.
All right. Well, I guess that's about a C minus average. C for criminally boring. Didn't even commit that many crimes. He committed
really
crimes. He did, but like it was only like one or two.
Oh, I have one more point to make.
Yeah.
I kind of it doesn't really impact the movie much, but I kind of love that the movie suggests that Eddie Redmayne and Zoe Kravitz are the same age.
I mean, how far apart are they in real life?
10 years.
Oh, wow.
A little less. I think maybe 8 to 10 years apart.
Is that more of like Eddie Redmayne just looks older than he is? Or is it that he's...
Actually, I think, if I remember correctly, I think he's like 36, 37, and she's about like 28, 29.
Right.
So maybe,
I think it's a case of they're trying to age him down.
Right. That's what I mean. How old is Newt supposed to be?
Well, I think it's implied that they've been out of Hogwarts for like a decade. So, I mean, I don't know. Take that as you will, because they're still pretty young. I mean, his brother is just now getting married, and Harry Potter world, they usually get married around 26, 27. It's like pretty average.
Okay, so my guess would have been about like 30. But it seems like you're thinking lower than that, like
maybe
27.
Slightly, yeah, because he hasn't written the textbook yet. I don't know. I'm sure some Potterheads know this, have a better theory than I do on this, because I just honestly haven't thought about it enough. But anyway, so Rotten Tomatoes, the reviews definitely are kind of in line with where we're at. Average rating of 5.4 out of 10, super low. 39% of critics liked it. Not great. The consensus is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald has glimmers of the magic familiar to Harry Potter fans, but the story's spell isn't as strong as earlier installments. Kind of a shame, but we'll see if maybe they close this out with a third one. I do want to see Dumbledore versus Grindelwald, but I don't know. I'm not excited. As excited as I was excited to see that, I'm less excited now. All right, that'll do it for our review of Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. Tyler, thanks so much for reviewing this film with us. Before you go, and we get into mini reviews, where can people find everything that you do?
Yeah, so I host Bacon and Eggs, a movie lovers podcast. We have new episodes out every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts. So we're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, everywhere. And I host that with my best friend, Ethan Edgehill. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at AmeriCarlin. That's like America and Carlin, but all put together. The CA overlaps like a fun Venn diagram. I made that username when it was cool to love America.
Yes.
And
now you have to change it to Middle AmeriCarlin.
Right. And you can find our podcast on Twitter at Bacon and Eggs 23 and on Instagram at Bacon and Eggs Podcast. And that's where you can find me. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with.
Sounds great. And I think you also are going to be talking about this movie on that. And so if you need even more Fantastic Beasts conversation, I'm going to be listening. Looking forward to hearing what Ethan has to say about this one.
Yeah, so I'll be discussing the film. We'll probably dive more into the lore and the fiction that comes from the film with one of the greatest Potter scholars in the world, my brother Jonathan Carlin, who is the one of the Super Carlin brothers. We'll have that review out on, I guess, this Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Awesome. Thanks again, Tyler, and hopefully we'll have you on again.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good meeting you.
You too.
All right, let's get into our mini reviews. First up, we have a new Coen Brothers film. But
yes,
this one had a limited theatrical release.
If that.
Right, yeah. I was able to catch this on the big screen, which was great. And I don't know how it comes across on Netflix. This is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which is a Western anthology. It's 6 short films kind of put into one. It was written, directed, and produced by the Coen Brothers. The Coen Brothers, of course, I think both of us are pretty big fans of their work. Their last big film, I want to say, was it Hail Caesar? That was
their last film, yeah. I mean, I don't know what you qualify as big, but I mean, that was
Bridge of Spies since
well,
they
like
the screenwriter credit.
Yeah. They've been doing a lot of writing work of late. They were technically the story for Suburbicon as well last year, but they didn't write the version that was made. But they've been doing a lot of like writing work of late and directing less, but now they're kind of back into it again with this, which was once going to be a miniseries, I believe, like a series of anthology stories.
The film press sort of made it sound like that, but the Coen Brothers have come out and said, like, we never intended for this to be a miniseries. It was always supposed to be a Western anthology in film form. Yeah, but there was, I think, some miscommunication. For a while, I remember people were talking about this like it was a miniseries, and that was never really the case. But you can kind of see why I think people were sort of expecting an anthology series.
I think, though, maybe I misremember, but like I do think at one point they were debating it, at least. Like they were like looking at it, and they were like, "Well, maybe we could," and they were just like, "Nah, like this doesn't." Like, this should just be one thing. Like, that's too much.
I think they've said in interviews. Yeah, I think that was more speculation on our part. Because I
thought I remember seeing a quote about that, but I forget. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, but yeah, who knows? Maybe they were, and that's partly where the confusion came from. Either way, it is an anthology film, and it premiered at Venice International Film Festival this past August. It actually won Best Screenplay. Interestingly enough, I mean, I don't think anthologies get a lot of screenplay awards, honestly, which definitely tells you something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like one of the few anthology films where like the same filmmakers are making it front to back.
Exactly.
Like usually anthology films are like different writers and different directors, so it's kind of hard to peg who should get credit for what.
But, right. You've seen, let's see, there's 6 of these stories. You said you've seen the first 3 so far?
Yeah, I started watching the 4th one while I was waiting for you to come on to record. So I've seen about, I guess, half of them. There's 6, you said?
Yeah. So you'll be able to talk about half of them, which is great.
Yeah. For sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to it. So this was released on November 16th on Netflix. So yeah, it's hard to catch it in theaters at this point. I don't know if it's still playing on any of them. It was playing in San Francisco, which was fortunate, but yeah, I don't think it's playing any longer. But yeah, right now, if you're listening, you can check this out on Netflix, and maybe if you have some time off this Thanksgiving week. I personally recommend it if you're a Coen Brothers fan. This is the same strong writing that they've proven time and time again. It is one of those. It has the anthology curse/benefit of it's 6 different stories. You're gonna like at least one of them, if not most of them, and there's gonna be 1 or 2 maybe that don't work quite as well for you. I think that's honestly the best thing you can say about it. As far as the material goes, we can walk through each of these short films. The first one is The Namesake, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, where Tim Blake Nelson plays this sort of musician, bard / sharpshooter. And it's interesting because this one is easily the most over the top kind of like classic Coen Brothers, where it's like very zany violence. That's, and it's like nihilism, but it's funny.
Well, it's interesting. It's like the most directly cartoonish since Raising Arizona, I'd say.
Yeah, it's probably fair.
As far as like the way it's directed.
There's Coen Brothers DNA in each of these short films. This one, it's definitely the humor violence that they've done in a lot of their films. Raising Arizona comes to mind. And then you have another one called, I forget which one this one's called, but it's the bank heist one with James Franco. Probably like my least favorite, honestly. This one didn't quite work for me. And then there's Meal Ticket, which has Liam Neeson, and I forget his name, but he plays Dudley in the Harry Potter films, bringing it back to Harry Potter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which Meal Ticket, I when this one came on, I was a little bit like, this is probably good, but I'm also very sad, I guess, is probably the best way I can describe it.
I mean, it's definitely not meant to be uplifting. Yeah. At least by the end.
The last 3 are my favorites.
Okay, really?
I think so. The one was there's the girl who was rattled with Zoe Kazan. I love this one. I love the Tom Waits one. This is where again I'm blanking on a lot of these names, but it's Gold Canyon or something like that. And it's about a prospector.
Is that Tom Waits?
Yeah.
I thought that was Nick Nolte.
It's funny because like when you watch it, I didn't know Tom Waits was in this, and then like,
they said at the beginning, but I forgot.
Well, a few minutes into it, you see his face, and you're like, wait, that is definitely Tom Waits, and it's fantastic. Nick Nolte is he in this?
I don't think so. It just looked like Nick Nolte to me for a second, but like I said,
I was like,
I just started watching it, so like I just thought like, is that Nick Nolte? And then you called. So,
yeah. The last one, which is called The Mortal Remains, is definitely the biggest mind F, because it just you'll see, but it's kind of like this interesting. It reminds me a lot of Hateful Eight, honestly, and in a good way, where it's very dialogue heavy and it's very like disturbing in a lot of ways. All that said, I don't know which one of these is my favorite. I know a lot of people are going to love Ballad of Buster Scruggs the best.
I was going to say.
It's funny. It's such a good, like, gets you into the mood to enjoy this whole thing. And I think that if you don't love the bank heist one right after, I'd say stick with it. Because I think these stories, on balance are pretty good. What do you think of it so far?
Yeah, I was going to say, I would say The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is my favorite thing I've seen all year. I just love it to pieces. I want to rewatch it again because it's
great. I
mean, I think it's the catalyst for the project, as the title would suggest, because I believe Tim Blake Nelson said like they've been talking about it for like 20 years. And I think they just kind of worked the other ones in like around that time, like just we're catching different ideas.
This whole thing feels like a bunch of their Western ideas. If you know the Coen brothers, they love Westerns. Yeah. So in like all their films, they try to do something with a Western sentimentality. It feels like, this is like their junk drawer of ideas that you can't quite stretch into a film. They finally were like, okay, we'll just do an anthology.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like, I don't think you can really do I guess you can maybe do a film with Buster Scruggs, but like I think it works best. It's just like what it is, like, because
absolutely the
ultimate message of the film or the short film is pretty poignant when it ends the way it does. But I really love that one. I think I like the James Franco one a little more than you did. I thought my only thing with that was just like when it ended, I was like, oh, okay. Like I just didn't.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I fall with it. Yeah, I was okay with it as it was going, but then yeah, I was like, okay.
I mean, I love the first half of it though, and my only disappointment was just that the ending just kind of fizzled for me. But I would say of the three I've seen so far, I think the Liam Neeson one's maybe my least favorite, just because it kind of went the way I expected it to.
Yeah, it goes a little long.
Yeah. But it's well done. I mean, it's certainly well directed, but I just didn't think there were any like major surprises once you figure out what the premise is.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that was a little disappointing. But I thought Liam Neeson was very good in it, and I'm excited to see where the fourth one goes. Especially if you're saying that the last three are going to be among the best. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Definitely for me, I think my favorite is The Gal Who Got Rattled. I think that was the strongest. It's not the fourth one. I think it's the fifth one.
Yeah,
and that to me was like, if you could turn any of these into a movie, you probably could have done it with this one. And it probably still would have worked just as well, because this one has a last like 5 minutes that are probably the best thing I've seen in a Coen Brothers joint since 3 of the scenes in Hail Caesar. I loved Hail Caesar. I think it was one of my favorite films of 2016. And I know a lot of people, it doesn't have its fans, but that film,
like it, yeah.
I really enjoy it. I think that it's just I think it's just really good Coen Brothers material. Obviously not their very best, but that's definitely a high bar. But that's The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I give it a B+. I think the writing in here is very strong. Some of it isn't as good, but I do think it does what anthology films need to do. It gives you mostly good stories, and then a few that I think are truly great. So yeah, I definitely think it's a solid recommend, and pretty accessible. I wish more people could see it on the big screen, but yeah, if you're able to check it on the big screen, definitely do that. And hopefully I'll check in with you later to find out what your grade is. Once
I was gonna say I'm not gonna give a grade as of now, but yeah, I'm definitely digging what I see. I think if anything, you should just check out at least a couple of these. I think they're well worth your time.
Yeah. And a good way to balance your expectations. Don't expect any of these to really connect. The only thing that really connects these is your Coen Brothers filmography knowledge, and that's about it. And I don't think you need to connect them, or I don't think you need to like really put them into a box. I think you can just appreciate them, even if you're going into this not really have watched a lot of Coen Brothers films. Yeah.
And I will say, I mean, having seen the film or watching the film on Netflix, one of the best things is pausing for the book chapters and like reading like what the text reads.
Yeah, I did that too.
Great. Well, I thought you said you saw it on the big screen.
Well, I still read it, but like I wish.
Know, but like, yeah, if you the one benefit of it being on Netflix is that you can just pause and just read.
Yeah, what I was saying is like I was really like looking at the pages, and especially with the one with the Gal Who Got Rattled. There's a nice little thing in there that like really makes it crystallize, and I think you have enough time to read through it if you're a speed reader, I guess, but that I might have to do that, like actually pause.
Yeah, I think it's better just to pause, because like there's a lot of like it's just very well written sentences. Like they're just, I don't know if the Coens wrote those sentences, but they're very beautifully composed, and it's just you kind of like just need to let it like soak in, and you're just like, oh, okay, that story's done, let's go to the next one. And that's why I really appreciate, that's the main thing I appreciate about it being on Netflix, that you can do that.
Will, you ready to have a fight?
Oh yeah, let's bring out the bare knuckles.
Let's do it.
Let's do this.
Okay, Instant Family. Instant Family. Well, why don't you walk us through what this film is?
It's the new comedy directed and co-written by Sean Anders, who is probably best known for the Daddy's Home films. He also made Sex Drive, and I think She's Out of My League was one you were saying last week he did. There's another one he did I'm forgetting right now. What was the other film he did?
I can bring it
Horrible
up.
Bosses 2. That's it. He directed Horrible Bosses 2.
Yeah, I was going to say he worked on Dumb and Dumber 2.
Screenplay, yeah.
Yeah, We're the Millers, That's My Boy.
He did That's My Boy. Oh.
He only wrote She's Out of My League. He also wrote Hot Tub Time Machine.
Okay.
Sex Drive, which he directed and co-wrote.
Right.
I kind of love that movie.
It's the best, I would say, of his directing efforts.
That movie, it honestly, it came out at the perfect time for me. I was that exact age. I was graduating high school, and
I was Drive.
Right, yeah. But no, I was going on road trips with my friends, not to do what this character was doing, to be super clear. But yeah, no, that was just one of those movies that my friends and I watched in 2008 that just kind of spoke to us a little bit. Like, I don't know, I felt like Sean Anders kind of like, there's something about the way that Sean Anders directs characters that and writes them that just kind of jives with me, I guess. I like his movies a little bit more than other people do. I don't think Horrible Bosses 2 or Dumb and Dumber 2 are really any good. And then, honestly, the Daddy's Home films, I think they're okay. In fact, the first Daddy's Home, I kind of found funny and just sort of fine, honestly. I do know some people genuinely hate that film, and I don't blame them, I guess. But yeah, it kind of worked for me.
I don't hate the sequel. I don't hate the original. I do hate the sequel, I meant to say. The sequel is just terrible. Like, it's really, really bad, in my opinion, at least.
But okay, Instant Family. It's inspired by a true story. Mark Wahlberg and Rose Byrne play these two parents who decide that something's kind of missing in their life. You know, they flip houses, and so, you know, Mark Wahlberg's character sort of insensitive. How do you say insensitively describes, we could do that with kids. Like we can,
with pets, like you can just adopt them.
He compares them to houses. It's like, they decide to adopt kids who have like troubled backstory.
They're kind of like what's that couple, the Gaines. They're like sort of like that. Joanna and whatever the other one's got, Chip Gaines, right?
They even reference like HGTV, like it very much feels like a couple out of like one of those do-it-yourself shows that kind of like seems really perfect on the surface. And what happens when you throw a couple of wrenches into their lives? That's really this movie. It also stars Isabella Monet, who's she's a singer. I think she sings the ending credits. Character actress Margot Martindale's in this.
Of course, yes.
Best character of the film by kind of a wide margin. I'm saying that kind of.
The only good thing for me, I think, was that.
All right. Yeah. Julie Haggerty, Tig Notaro, and Octavia Spencer have a fun little couple dynamic there. They play they help guide the foster parents. There is like an interesting vein of this movie where the foster parents who take on these kids, they go to classes together and they have like a support group. And this is like where some of the comedians get to have their say. Tom Segura, for example, is a comedian that especially Maverick Hines absolutely adores. And like I was telling Maverick some of the jokes of this movie because I knew that he would get a kick out of them. I wish he could have come to see this. Joan Cusack has a very small role in this for some reason.
What was up with that?
That was very strange. I did not understand why that happened. It's toward the end of the film.
What's up with that? Yeah, it was very weird. I love Joan Cusack.
Yeah,
but it was just like
treasure.
It's like the last like 15 minutes of the movie, and then like Joan Cusack pops her head. It's like, hey, don't forget, I'm in the movie. It's like, were you introduced before? Where'd you come from?
I will say Tom Segura was probably my favorite, not cameo, but he is sort of like a side character. He was probably one of the funniest. But I did really appreciate what they did with Eliza Schlesinger, who has a couple of really good comedy specials on Netflix. I don't know if you've ever seen her, but she has Elder Millennial.
I know of her, but I haven't seen any of her stuff.
She has a very funny, like, blindside, running gag in this that I think is pretty funny. And I recommend if you haven't seen any of her comedy.
No, I meant like her. No, I'm not talking about her like stand-up special. I just meant I didn't think her bit in this film was any good.
I found it pretty funny. But yeah, she Elder Millennial is her latest, and I think it's pretty strong. But Will, so let's cut to the chase. You did not like this film. I did.
Yeah.
Let's start with the negative and go into the positive, I guess. So what did not work for you for this one?
I think for me, it's just that it's just so like middle of the road in its approach. Like I give, all right, I'll say a couple positive things because I only have a handful. I appreciate Sean Anders for, trying to mature his filmmaking. This is obviously a personal story for him. It's based on his life. I think they say at the beginning, based on a true story. It's based on his personal experiences of adopting kids through the foster program. The movie has good intentions. I don't think it means poorly. I think it has its heart in the right place. The performances are fine. I mean, I think you mentioned most of the cast, and there's nobody I would say is bad in this. I think everyone's okay. I think Margot Martindale is the best part of it, but she's not used nearly enough. And I do think the girl, I think you mentioned her, she's a singer as well.
Yeah, Isabella.
she did a very good job. I think she has a couple of dramatic moments in the film that work. But as I just find it to be inoffensive yet bland putty. It's a movie for your grandma and your mom to like, and it's fine. Like, it's whatever. It's not my thing, and I accept that. But I don't think it's good. Like, I don't think it does anything that you want to expect. It goes exactly as you would anticipate. It is boilerplate, and I was sufficiently pretty bored by it because I just didn't think it was that funny or charming. So that's personally where I stand on it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm so different on this. I think that there's something special about it. I honestly think people. Well, first of all, I think people are going to watch this. To what you're saying, I think they're going to watch this and they're going to be inspired by Sean Anders' story here, and they're going to be inspired to maybe go through the foster system themselves and adopt kids. But they're not going to do it.
Good intentions,
right? Yeah, but I don't think. And I think because a lot of people are going to like this movie. I think that that's safe to say. I think that it's like you said. Like, I think. I wouldn't just say your grandma will like it. I recommended this to my mother. I recommended this to my siblings. I recommend this to like anybody who, has a dysfunctional family or knows people who've gone through this process. And one of the things I like about this film is, and one thing that I was really worried that it was going to sort of gloss or sanitize the adoption experience. As somebody who, I have family that have adopted. Not my immediate family, but like I have a sibling who she adopted. She and her husband adopted a kid, and like what you go through with that is very, very difficult. It's challenging and it's a nightmare, but it's so important. But what I like about this film is that it doesn't sanitize it and it doesn't do any like mismarketing. When the movie ends, you see it for what it is. You see that it's the hardest thing and the hardest job in the world to parent kids who aren't yours, but you should. So for me, this movie rates so high on the does it matter, metric. I think we can get into spots of this movie where it's not like the most, it's not the flashiest, competently, technically made film by any stretch.
Well, that's what I find weird as well, is that like the movie shows style at the beginning, like for the first 15 minutes, like there's like a decent amount of style in the film. It's like, okay, at least be like a different approach for Sean Anders. And then the rest of the film is like very basic, and it's very weird.
Do you mean in the structure or the way it's shot?
No,
or anything
like the way it's like directed. Like he like incorporates like a kind of unique style. Like he like has like this flashback that's kind of interesting, and like it like shows that he's like doing some stylistic things that would have been different for him. At least would have separated it from the Daddy's Home films, and then I felt like that was dropped, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I don't think I noticed, because you're right. It does sort of become more of like a, not straightforward, but I mean the first montage of this film, which you would expect this film to have like 6 montages. The first one is like in the 3rd act. But honestly, I guess I didn't notice because at that point I was so invested. I think this is a case of if you care about these characters within the first 15 minutes, and I'm talking about the parents really, if you care about them and you like them, I think this movie is going to work for you quite a bit, because I was so invested in them, and I liked that they were unconventionally written in a way. Like, they weren't overly likable, they weren't perfect, but they also like they had their lives together. They weren't like overly selfish. There were moments in here where I don't know, I felt like they were not real people, but like they were believable, I guess. And so I wanted to see like, okay, can they actually do this thing together? And there were just some really poignant messages in here of like what it's like to parents, and I'm not a parent myself, but obviously like a lot of movies dive into this territory, and I like that this one didn't shy away from how this process really goes. And I think Sean Anders was able to put something in here that was special to that extent. My biggest criticism against it is it's not funny enough to sort of just be a straight up comedy. I think it's much better at the drama. And so I can definitely see why some people are going to watch it and be a little disappointed, because it's not going to be as funny. It's the humor is few and far between, honestly. It still worked for me though, because the drama was that good. But it sounds to me like the drama didn't quite work for you, Will. I'm guessing, is it because you didn't like the characters as much, or is it really just like the story was too predictable for you?
No, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said. I just didn't think it was that impacting or charming. Like, I think the dramatic scenes are fine. Like, they're not bad. I would certainly say they're better than the comedic scenes, but
definitely.
I just don't think there's anything in this movie that stands out or that I personally would really recommend about it. But like I said, like the intentions are good. I can respect what the movie is going for. I can respect why Sean Anders made the film. I do think it's more meaningful than his other films to an extent. And I like that he is like trying to expand. He's trying to make a film that's not really about children or people pursuing, sexual desires or anything like that, like his other films are. I think he's evolving as a filmmaker, and I can respect that fine. But I just didn't personally. I got nothing out of this film really, but I'm glad you did. So
that's a shame. But Will, I do think that I do think that this is a film that could have been better, a lot better. But I honestly, it did impact me, and I'm glad it did, because I'm looking forward to recommending this one to a few people. And yeah, that's Instant Family. I mean, pretty straightforward review. I give this one a B. It's good. What was your grade?
C.
What a divide. Have we ever gone larger than that? Like, have I ever given something like an A- or an A, and you gave it like a C- or something like that? I think the closest would probably be Suspiria, maybe.
I was gonna say, I guess Searching was pretty divided, but like I still like that film. But you gave it like an A-, I gave it a B-. Like, there's movies where we were like a grade letter off. I don't know if there's anything where we had that extreme.
I think we're 2 grade letters off on Suspiria, honestly.
Well, actually, I think Tag we're 2 grades off.
Are we
as well?
Well, I gave that a B.
I gave it like a D.
Oh yeah, that was a weird grade from you. I'm just kidding. Well, I think Suspiria is the latest, because I'm not going to review it, but I gave that a C+. I really just
like it. Well,
we'll talk about it later. Yeah, and I know that's one of your favorites. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, this is for anyone who sees a film. Like, I get it if you don't like it. It's not going to be for everyone. It's a nearly 3-hour film that is can be very challenging and not easy to enjoy, but personally, I really, really liked it. I think it's going to honestly go down as a masterpiece. But like I said, it's not for everybody, and I can respect that.
Yeah, could not disagree more on the masterpiece part. But we'll relitigate that battle later.
Well, have fun watching Instant Family.
That's right. I will. Okay, Will Ashton, let's talk about a movie that you and I would probably agree on, but I missed my screening for it, sadly. Bodied. What is Bodied, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, Bodied is the new film from director Joseph Kahn. If you know Joseph Kahn, you probably know him better for his music videos. I can't think of all the artists he's worked with, but I know he's made quite a few Taylor Swift music videos, like Bad Blood and Look What You Made Me Do, and a couple others he has done. He also did Detention a couple years ago. He did that, I think it's called Power/Rangers, which is like the adult gritty like parody of the Power Rangers series, where it's like making fun of like the like Dark Knight effect of like properties where like everything becomes very gritty and serious. Not to be confused with the actual Power Rangers film that came out last year.
I think honestly one of the first music videos I ever saw was one of his. It was one that he did with Jennifer Lopez, which
probably I mean
my Puerto Ricanness is coming out a little bit here, but yeah.
No, but I mean he's been working for I think 20 years or something, like in the music video game.
Yeah, he started on like late 90s, something like that.
I think yeah. He also made Torque as well, which I need to revisit, because I remember at the time thinking
he did the Ice Cube film.
Yeah, which I guess I remember at the time thinking it was like a knockoff of the Furious. I saw it as a teen, so I wasn't really thinking about it too in depthly, I guess. But apparently, it's like kind of like ahead of its time, in that it's kind of like a critique on those type of films like Point Break as well, and the kind of the male dynamics and stuff. So I think I need to give that one another visit. But
wasn't he also supposed to do Neuromancer?
Was he?
I think he was tapped to do that like a decade ago, but he never made it. Instead, he made Detention.
Yeah, I mean, I know he says he's on the Slash Filmcast a lot, and he's talked about his like process. I think he like every like 3 or 4 years, or maybe even more than that, like 5 or 6 years, he like makes a new project, like a big project, like a film. And this is like his next one after the Power Rangers thing. So I guess maybe he lost.
Did you see that too? Because I actually really liked that short film, the Power Rangers one. That was
I remember.
Much better than the actual movie they made.
I'll agree with you on that. I think I would have liked it more if I was actually like a fan of Power Rangers and I understood.
Right, yeah. Because it really is working off of like you liking the original property, sure.
Right, which I'm admittedly I'm not a big Power Rangers guy. I don't really know much about it, but I respected what it was, and I will say I think as far as his films are concerned, Body is probably his best. So it is based on a story by Joseph Kahn, but it's written by a guy named Alex Larson. I forget. He's also like a battle rapper, which is what the film's about. It's
Kid
basically
Twist.
about Kid Twist. There, thank you. Yeah, so it's about basically the broad scheme of it is about modern battle rap, like for people who it's like, oh, like my only experience battle rap is like 8 Mile. It's like a film like, okay, like a lot has changed in like, well, 15 years.
Eminem produced this, so
that's true. Yeah, that's what I mean. But it's like kind of like, well, for one, like we don't really, it doesn't work like that anymore. It's a little more like self-contained, but there's like a little like different stakes and stuff like that. But
you would know, Will Ashton. I mean, you do battle raps every week. I mean,
yeah. I mean, you know me. I mean, I have a little bit to say about that, but hang on, let me finish. But the film, in a bigger sense, is more about like free speech to an extent, but more just like the consequences of free speech, particularly with like white liberals and how like you know, like with his main character, he kind of he's like a very like, he's a graduate student, he's a very thoughtful kind of guy, and he's like trying to be careful, but he kind of wants to get into this. And then once he goes into it, he steps over all these boundaries, and it just becomes like a kind of thoughtful commentary on like what it is to be in today's world, especially now as we grow more PC, and just kind of evaluating that and commenting on that. And I think it's a good film. Overall, I do enjoy it. I think it's entertaining. My only main criticism, I think it's too long at 2 hours. Like I think it makes its point several times, and I think it by the 2 hour mark, it kind of overstays its welcome. But as it stands, it's solid. It's entertaining. It's not going to be for everyone, as you can expect. I can understand if this movie offends your taste. It is what it is, and I don't think it's going to warm everyone up. But I was surprised because the main guy is Callum Worthy, I believe his name is. Callum Worthy. He was probably best known for some Disney Channel thing.
Yeah, he was Austin from Austin and Ally.
There you go.
You can thank my nieces for knowing that. He was also in Thanksgiving Family Reunion, which again, I was like pretty young when that came out. It was a National Lampoon film.
Oh, I can't say what.
It's one of the older ones, but yeah.
But you know, I mean, it's him kind of stepping into something that's directly more adult, and I think he does a good job. And I think it's a solid screenplay. I'm excited to see if Kid Twist will make another film as a screenwriter, or if this is just what he wants to do. As it stands, I gave it a B-. Like I said, it's not perfect. It'll probably be on YouTube pretty soon, not like for free, like I think through their streaming service.
Yeah, which I have, so I'll be able to check it out. I want to see this on the big screen though, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I apparently it only showed in 13 cities, and I'm apparently directly responsible for it being in Pittsburgh because
nice.
I suggested we play it at the theater because they wanted to play Suspiria and they couldn't get it, unfortunately. But I was like, hey, if you heard about this movie Bodied, you know, it's pretty good. Or I've heard it's pretty good, and then we got it. And so if you saw it in Pittsburgh and you'd like to, you're welcome, I guess.
Yeah, send us an email and thank Will Ashton personally.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, but it's a shame that it didn't get a bigger theatrical release. I do think I didn't really see it with a big audience, but I do think like that theater experience really, you know, kind of gets you immersed into that you know the world's portraying. And so I definitely would recommend if you can see it in theaters, but I think it'll play well on any streaming service that you get, or at least YouTube. And I will say it is very, very weird to see the YouTube logo on the big screen.
yeah, because it's YouTube. Is it YouTube Premium or YouTube Red? Because I know that they've changed the name or something.
I don't think it's
YouTube?
either.
Okay.
No, it wasn't YouTube. I think it's YouTube Originals.
Got it.
I think it's what the theater version was. It's YouTube Originals.
YouTube's doing pretty okay on the originals front because they had this and they had Cobra Kai earlier this year. So some good stuff.
Yeah.
But okay, Rotten Tomatoes. Oh, sorry. What was your grade?
Oh, I gave it a B-.
Awesome. Okay. Rotten Tomatoes likes it a little bit more than a B-. It looks like it's got an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's like more like a B+ if you want to put Rotten Tomatoes into grades, I guess. But the average rating is 7.2 out of 10. So most critics like it. And yeah, the box office obviously is low. I mean, this thing has only made 100,000. And it looks like most of that was in Pittsburgh. So again, good job.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah.
I don't know. We got a mixed response. Like we got a lot of people came the first day, and then not many people came the other days they played.
Gotcha.
So
it was the budget wasn't super low. It looks like it was a little less than 15 million. So might be a bit of a flop depending on if YouTube factors in all that other stuff. And Neon, I guess, also helped with this. So
yeah, I don't think their logo came up, but I do know they're involved. I do wonder though if the YouTube was like a blessing and a curse thing. Like obviously, you know, they are going to put it on their streaming service, and I think they're going to bring it to a wide audience. But at the same time, I feel like because the YouTube logo is pretty big on the poster, if people just saw that and just like, oh, okay, I'll just wait until it's on YouTube. Yeah. So I don't know. As far as the theatrical release is concerned, I think that might have been a hindrance. But oh well, I guess people will see it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's Bodied. Next, we have Can You Ever Forgive Me? This is a new biographical film that is about the life of Lee Israel. And Lee Israel was a famous author. She kind of came up in like the 70s and 80s as somebody who wrote biographies of people like Estee Lauder, I think, was like the big one that she did. To be honest, going into this, I wasn't as familiar with Lee Israel, except I did know that she was more famous for what this movie is about, which was she was a very prominent forger. She would literary forger, and she actually, you know, faced some criminal charges for some of this, which the movie gets into. Lee Israel here is played by Melissa McCarthy. It takes place in the early 90s, and Richard E. Grant is sort of her partner in crime, as it were. And they both play these LGB characters living in New York, kind of dealing with, you know, their lives haven't gone the way that they sort of expected. She hasn't sold with her publisher in a long time, and she's having trouble paying her rent, but she's also just a very curmudgeonly, mean-spirited person who's kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do I revive my writing career? How do I, you know, adapt but still stay true to who I am? And so she kind of figures out that she can, because she's a biographer, she can forge letters because she understands the lives of these people that she's read for years, and she can impersonate them and write letters that were believably written by them. And she makes them purposefully salacious. And she, you know, it kind of becomes like Breaking Bad, where she goes deeper and deeper into making this like a big operation and starts to make a ton of money off of selling these letters to unsuspecting collectors. And along the way, of course, you know, obviously she faces obstacle after obstacle in getting away with this. So this premiered at Telluride Film Festival this past September, definitely getting acclaim. I think that McCarthy, because of this movie, might actually get a Best Actress nomination at the Academy Awards. It's definitely, definitely a possibility. I think Fox Searchlight is going to push for this. It was also directed by Mariel Heller, who is an actress / filmmaker, probably best known for directing Diary of a Teenage Girl. She's also married to that guy from The Lonely Island. I forget his name.
Akiva?
Is that his name?
No, it's Jorma, I think, actually. He's Jorma, the director of MacGruber.
Yeah, he is a director of MacGruber.
Jorma. I don't know his last name, but
yeah,
I know his first name is Jorma.
Okay, so that's the setup. This is a great addition, by the way, to 52 films by women. I definitely recommend it on that level, and I recommend this movie. I think that it's pretty solid. What did you think, Will?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I came in a little more familiar with Lee Israel because I did read the book, Can You Ever Forgive Me? And it's not a long book. It's only like, I think 150, maybe a little less than 200 pages long. It goes more into like the actual process of her forging the letters, but it doesn't really talk much about her personal life. So I think this movie is actually a great companion piece to the book if you want to check it out, either before or after you see the film. Because it actually goes into more like her personal life, which is something, as you can see in the film, that she's a little more reserved about, particularly her sexuality. It's mentioned in the book, but it's a lot more explicit in the film, I think purposely so, because I think in studying this character who's pretty guarded and like kind of hard to read at sometimes, but like this movie is so warm and sincere in its approach. And it's a good balance. Like, you know, a character who is, you know, if you were to meet her in person, you may not like her, but, you know, growing to know her in this film, you get to love her a little bit and see where she's coming from. And I think Melissa McCarthy does a really good job. And I think you tend to be a little more critical of her films than I am. But I think every time, even the worst ones like Happy Time Murders, I'm like, you know, she's a really great actress. I can tell that she just doesn't always have the best properties to work with. But I think it's clear in every one of her films that she's a very talented actress. And I'm very glad that she was able to finally showcase that, you know, her comedic and dramatic chops again, because I think she excels at both. And this is a great property for her. But I think Richard E. Grant might steal the movie as Jack Hawk.
Yeah, maybe a Best Supporting Actor nom is in his future.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think if the movie's going to get a nom, it might be for him and for Best Adapted Screenplay. But it's too early to tell for now. But I would think Melissa McCarthy deserves as well. But it's going to be a tight race for Best Actress this year. But yeah, I think he's fantastic in the film. He's always great. Like, I mean, he's one of those guys. I think a lot of people like they see him and they recognize him, but they probably don't know his name. He's like a tall, lanky British guy.
He's kind of unrecognizable in Nutcracker and the Four Realms, if you remember.
Yeah, he's covered in like frost and icicles the whole time. But yeah, he's really good in this film. He's very charismatic and funny, and he works great. He has tremendous chemistry with Melissa McCarthy, and I think their drinking scenes together are some of the most fun I've had in the movies this year. And I hope you agree with that sentiment.
I do, and I was surprised because, as you know, I went into this not expecting much because I just don't think the trailers did a good job of selling this film. I think that it was partly because I've yet to see a Melissa McCarthy performance that I thought was very impressive. I think Bridesmaids was a funny performance that she kind of steals the movie, but it wasn't for me a rewatchable experience, and I didn't like Spy nearly as much as most people.
You didn't like it.
Right, yeah, and I've disliked basically every other film that she's done. But for me, this is easily her best film.
I was going to say, you haven't seen The Nines, right?
Mm-mm.
Oh, she's fantastic in The Nines. I definitely recommend it. But yeah, this is one of her best performances. I agree.
Yeah, I just think that what she does with this performance is pretty masterful. And it just makes me wish she was doing more projects like this because she captures Lee Israel in a way that, like, first of all, I understand her as an author much better now because she is the kind of person that, like, her situation is very bleak and sad, but she does not let you pity her one bit. And I love movies that do that. I love movies that take you into a character's head without trying to manipulate you into liking them. So I think this is a great case study in unlikable characters you can't help but root for, but also still dislike. And I think this is a rare movie that kind of really captures that. And I think that the fact that she and Richard E. Grant are able to do the same thing on screen together, it's good. It just really is. It's not a terribly long film. I think it's efficient. I think that it gets its point across. This is just a really solid kind of indie flick that's worth checking out if you're inclined. And another strong film from Marielle Heller, who, I think that she's on her way to like really directing some, because I think Diary of a Teenage Girl, I think, was underwatched. I think that was one of the best films of 2015. And, I just can't believe Marielle Heller is so good this early, and I just really want to see more from her. I want awards recognition for her, and she definitely deserves some really good projects moving forward.
Yeah. Well, she's working on the Mr. Rogers film with Tom Hanks at the moment. I think they're in post. So she'll probably get award consideration for that for sure, but hoping that movie is good. But I agree. She's fantastic, and I am very impressed with how accomplished she is with only 2 films under her belt so far. Yeah. And I think having a female co-writer and a female director really helped this project as far as what it was communicating. Like you said, making her character very well-rounded, not completely likable, but you can completely understand where she's coming from. And I enjoyed it quite a bit. Yeah,
I give this one a B. Go see it. It's good. Kind of getting close to B+, but not quite. But yeah, it's just very solid. What about you?
Yeah, it was between a B+ and an A-. I'm gonna lean, I guess, more towards B+, just because I don't think there's anything that's like revolutionary in it. I just think it's like I think it's just a very well put together movie, and I think most people who watch it or seek it out are going to like it, especially if you kind of like this. There's something like a '90s kind of vibe to it, where it's like a lot of, like you said, a lot of sad, stressful stuff's going on, but there's something very easygoing and kind of pleasant about it at the same time, which is like a very 90s film quality I really appreciate in this, especially like 90s film set in New York.
Yeah.
That it harkens back to. And I do love that the movie, like, even though that it takes place in the early 90s, it has like this kind of like retro feel to it that echoes kind of Lee Israel's like stuck in her ways sort of mentality that I think communicates the film really well. I think one of what's the director's name? I apologize.
Marielle Heller?
Marielle Heller, yeah. I think one of her strongest suits as a director is production design, like making the sets and the scenes for the characters really communicate.
Yeah, you get a sense of you get a sense of every location they go to. You remember them, and yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then like everything that's like like it's not brightly lit. It's like a lot of like browns and blacks, but it's still kind of visually striking. Like you can't really take your eye off of it, and I think that's really impressive how they pulled that off. So
this movie made me care about a cat lady, and the relationship between her and her cat actually made me feel something. So I give it a lot of credit for that.
I'm gonna offer another disclaimer for Cinemaholic fans who are cat people. We are not discouraging you.
Oh yeah, I don't mean it in that way at all.
Yeah.
I have a cat, well, not mine, but my roommate's. I'm not a cat person. I am very much a dog person, but I can hang with cats. They're fine.
I prefer dogs to cats, but I like cats fine.
Yeah.
I like one cat.
just one cat in a
No,
hat.
I was gonna say one cat in particular, but
yeah, I was holding the hands of some listeners who don't know about your Cat in the Hat podcast spinoff. Okay.
Oh, I was talking about Garfield.
Oh yeah, sorry. There's so many cats you choose from. There's two.
I guess two. You got two.
Yeah. Okay, so can you ever forgive me? Rotten Tomatoes. This is a 98%. So yeah, average rating of 8.2 out of 10. I think it's hard to find somebody who does not like this movie, which makes a lot of sense. But that's Can You Ever Forgive Me? Let's move on to okay, Tenacious D in Post-Apocalypto. Will, what is this? You saw this?
Yeah. It's speaking of, I probably should have talked about this after the Bodied review. It's a YouTube miniseries, not made by YouTube, but put on YouTube. But it's from Jack Black and Kyle Gass, who are I guess once, I don't know if they're considered like a mockumentary, or not mockumentary, like a mock rock band, but like they are basically a rock band. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a weird kind of like Spinal Tap, Lonely Island type of thing, where like they are kind of like making fun of their genre, but by making songs that are actually pretty, catchy, enjoyable, they've like found themselves legitimately in their genre, like in a way that's not really ironic. So it's like a weird balance, but I'm a big fan of theirs. I just saw them live like a couple, I guess actually just 1 week ago. And I greatly enjoy them. I think it comes mostly from, Jack Black's charisma as a stage man. And also I think Kyle Gass is extremely talented as a musician. And they made, I guess was just technically a sequel to their film Pick a Destiny with Post-Apocalypto, which is I think 6-part series on YouTube. You can watch the whole thing in like one video. It's like basically like a 70-minute film, and it's just about them surviving the apocalypse and just kind of going about trying to save the world, as it were. And it's their most directly political work as well, which is pretty interesting to see. It definitely talks a lot about current politics, and apparently Trump's presidential win was a big catalyst for getting this project into motion, finally cracking, I guess, the egg that they were trying to figure out for many years when they were making it. It's a lot of fun. I find it weird that Pick a Destiny is a film. I don't think it's that good. I'd probably give it like a C+ as far as the film is concerned, but I've listened to the soundtrack probably like 500 times. I just think there's a lot of great songs in there, and I just wish the film was better than that. I'm a little bit on the opposite side, I guess, on this. Like I like the soundtrack, but I think the story and like the comedy works better just because it is like in short segments. So I think it flows a little better than like a film where it has to have like this overarching narrative. This is a little more kind of like cut and paste. And so I think there's a little bit more accessibility to this that makes it more consistently enjoyable than Pick a Destiny. But yeah, I mean, if you could check it out on YouTube, if you don't dig it, you can just stop after the first one. If not, you can watch the whole thing there, and I think you'll enjoy it as a fun kind of breezy hour on YouTube. And I will warn you that there's a ton of phallic imagery, so be prepared for that going in. And some of it is very directly sexual. Pretty much the second episode is very explicitly sexual, so be mindful of where you're watching it, I guess. But yeah, I definitely recommend it. I'll probably give it a B- as well. Like, I don't think it's amazing or anything, but I had a lot of fun watching it, and I hope people check it out.
Yeah, I'm much more likely to listen to the album. I honestly...
Well, the thing is that if you listen to the album, you probably won't understand what's going on because it's very interweaved into the story.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess aside from Kyle Glass and Jack Black, I mean, the only thing I've ever really... Huh?
Oh, you said Kyle Glass. It's Kyle Gass.
Oh, Gass, sorry. Yeah. Aside from them, I guess... I know Dave Grohl has done some stuff.
Yeah,
with them,
one album with them.
Yeah,
the
he
one
does the
with
drums
tribute on it. Yeah.
Right, and so like that's my only like entry point into this. Not really my thing, but no, I'm glad you like it and you're recommending it to fans who are inclined, or maybe people who can dig through. I mean, they've been around for decades at this point, so there's definitely a lot of material, to go through. But okay, that's Tenacious D in Post-Apocalypto, an interesting pick. I'm going to talk about Burning.
I was gonna say, I think I'm pretty spent for now, but yeah.
All right, Burning is interesting film because it's one of those. It's an indie film that is you're probably going to see it on a lot of top tens of the year. It might actually get nominated for Best Foreign Film, the Academy Awards. Or actually, I should say it was already selected. It was the South Korean entry for Best Foreign Language Film. I don't think it made the wave though, but it's finally like reaching the U.S. and as I mentioned, it takes place in South Korea with South Korean actors. It was directed by Lee Chang-dong, who I'm not as familiar with his filmography. He's very, very prominent in South Korea. A lot of American film critics, though, are more familiar with his work, but he hasn't been around in about a decade. So, I haven't had a chance to really dig into his work yet. After seeing this film, I'm very interested in seeing what else he's done. I've heard great things. This one stars Yoo Ah-in, Steven Yeun, and Jong Se. I'm not good at pronouncing Korean names. I apologize. But it's also based on a short story called Barn Burning, which was written by Haruki Murakami, who I have heard of. He's a very famous writer. I think I've written some of his short stories before. He's pretty well known for like noir mysteries that take place in South Korea. But this one, I think it premiered at Cannes this year. And it did pretty well. A lot of great buzz. Some film critics that I deeply respect have called this their favorite of the year. And so I think that if you are a film lover, this is a must-see. I struggle, though, to recommend this to everyone. It's a long movie. It is 148 minutes. Personally, I didn't feel it. I was in this movie. I did so full disclosure, I did a double feature. I watched this movie and then I watched Suspiria. And this movie, I had a bit of an intermission between. It wasn't like right after, but this movie really sucked me in. It's about a guy named Lee, who, he lives in Seoul. And he kind of stumbles across a childhood friend of his named Jaime, and he like starts to build up sort of a relationship with her. He's very socially awkward. He comes from a really broken family. His dad is like in jail, and he's trying to like take care of the farm in this village called Paju, which is like right outside the city. And so he comes into contact with her. And he starts to like, develop very strong feelings for her. She goes on a trip, though, and comes back with this guy named Ben, who's played by Steven Yeun. You've seen him from Sorry to Bother You. He was also Glenn from the Walking Dead series. And he's this very aloof, mysterious character. And very quickly, you start to understand, okay, this is kind of like a modern take on The Great Gatsby. They reference Great Gatsby multiple times in this movie. Lee himself he says he's a big fan of William Faulkner, and he's a writer. And this is one of those movies where I'll just say not a lot happens. It is a movie that is filled with stuff, a lot of Lee being a casual observer on the world and watching him go about his daily life in these like specific circumstances as certain things develop that I won't spoil, and you're sort of led to believe that Lee has some very frightening decisions to make that will affect the rest of his life. There's a lot of commentary in here. This is one of those movies where, like, the first part of it, the characters literally say, this is what a movie is. Movies are about metaphors. Movies are about love. Movies are about romance. And then it spends the rest of the movie breaking all of the rules that Lee Chang-dong says, I know what the rules are. I'm going to break them. And I think that's what is making people love this film, and why I recommend it to film lovers. If you've watched more than 2,000 movies in your lifetime, if not, more, I think you're going to watch this movie and you're really going to want to appreciate it because of the directions it takes you and how wildly, I'm not going to say unpredictable. Unpredictable is what I would say about Suspiria. Suspiria is a very unpredictable movie. This movie isn't super unpredictable. There are things that you're like, okay, I know this is going to happen. I know this is going into it, but the way that it carries out those moments is there. It does it in unpredictable ways, and I appreciate about it. It's not one of my favorite films of the year by any stretch. I do think that it's a challenge. And I don't know. It wasn't a chore to sit through this. I really was just watching it, and I was with it the whole way. My only issues with it really are that, you have Lee, who is just this aggressively unlikable character. Like, very few redeeming things about him, and the movie knows it. The movie treats him as an awkward, misogynistic character, but then it juxtaposes him with somebody who's also terrible. And it's just one of those movies with terrible characters in it that you still sort of are trying to understand and get in their heads. And I guess that's all I'll say for now. I think, Will, you should definitely check this one out. You might get a kick out of it. I'm not surprised it's getting so much attention from film lovers and film critics, but it's definitely not a wide appeal film. It's not trying to be. It could possibly be a gateway, though, for a lot of people to start getting into South Korean cinema, and I hope it does, because it does transport you. It does such a good job of like educating Americans like me who've never been to South Korea, who people like me, like, okay, I know what Seoul is, but I don't know a lot of the logistics of how that country works, what they think of Chinese people. I don't know a lot about the North Korean border and what daily life for those people is like. And so this movie touches on those things. And so I think getting sucked into the daily lives of people that we don't know, it's a prominent feature of this movie. And I think that it ends very strong. There's a sequence in here that is a one take that is exceptionally good. It puts other one takes to shame. And so I definitely recommend it. For the most part, I give it a B+. And I hope you're able to check it out soon, Will.
Yeah. Definitely excited to check it out. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to be playing in theaters near me, but you said it's going to be on VOD pretty soon, so I'm hoping to check it out one way or the other. So
it should be, if not now, if not soon, like definitely before award season kicks in. And I think that it'll be worth a watch. It started limited release a few weeks ago, and I just barely caught it at like the tail end because it's not exactly like a blockbuster. So that's Burning. And Will, you have one more for us before we finish up the show.
I'll try and make it speedy, as it were.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, so I saw a movie called Speed Kills, and I don't even know how to describe this film other than it's John Travolta starring speedboat mafia thriller VR experience. It is a film that was, I think, made to be a VR experience, and then they turned it into a film. At least that's how it was released. It was released at some point as a VR experience, like 10-minute segments. And I was talking to somebody about it, and I guess so. The story is like it's like kind of like a Scorsese knockoff for this like guy. I don't even know if it's based on a true story or not. I don't think it is, but who knows? Like this like commercial like real salesman type guy, real estate salesman, like gets into like the apparently prestigious field of speedboat salesmanship, and he gets tangled up with the mafia somehow, and it's crazy. It's a movie that's insane, and I'm gonna say like quality wise, it's like a D, maybe a D-. But enjoyment wise, I think I got like a B+ level entertainment value out of it, because it is one of those glorious like once or twice a year type level of bad films that is just so ridiculous. This plot makes no sense, as you can imagine. A film that was 10-minute VR experiences tangled into one film doesn't make any sense. It is basically incomprehensible. John Travolta is not giving a good performance in this film, but it is so delirious and insane. Like, I don't even know, like, George H.W. Bush is a character in the film at one point.
Oh, obviously.
Tom Sizemore comes in doing something I don't even know what he's trying to do.
Oh, no.
You know Tom Sizemore?
Of course.
Yeah. What else? I don't even know where they begin. It's like I said, I think it's one of those good bad movies. I kind of want us to get drunk and talk about it for
a last call.
To kind of break down everything that happens.
Well, we said we would do that for Gotti, the other Travolta.
I think we should do a double feature: Gotti, Speed Kills because I still need to see Gotti.
Why would you do that to our listeners?
Well, I think they would enjoy it. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I was looking at. I apologize when you were talking about Bernie. I was looking at some of the posters and stuff, and I just crack up because of like the posters for this movie are just insane as well. If you get a chance, Google the posters for this movie. They're bonkers.
Oh no.
Are you looking at them now?
Yeah. A lot of speedboats. This is.
Do you see that he's like farting money in some of them?
No. What? Oh, I see. Oh no, it's like right behind him. That's great. This is good. So, 10 out of 10.
Yeah. So I would recommend Speed Kill if you love bad movies. If you just are like, I don't like bad movies, period, not even on like an ironic level. Mm-hmm. This is one of the worst movies of the year. But I had a lot of fun watching it. So D/B+.
All right. Oh, I like it. Yeah, it's an either or. 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. Not bad.
Yeah,
that's hard to get.
Terrible.
All right, well, that'll do it for mini reviews. We got to a lot of stuff. I wish we had time to do more. But next week we're going to be covering some other films that we've already seen, but we wanted to wait a little bit on. Two of them being Green Book and On the Basis of Sex. I've seen the former. You've seen the latter. Say again?
I think that doesn't come out until like Christmas, right?
Oh yeah, so we might even wait even longer, just so we don't give you too early of a review, and I don't even know when you're embargoed on that. So
yeah.
Regardless, we have plenty to get to next week. It's going to be a challenge, honestly. So we have, I think, our feature review, and we'll put out the poll as always. But Ralph Breaks the Internet, Wreck-It Ralph 2, looks to be the strongest contender for movie of the week. But also we have Creed 2 coming out, the sequel to Ryan Coogler's original, which I'm seeing my screener for Ralph Breaks the Internet conflicts with Creed 2. So I'm going to be seeing that instead. Mainly because, honestly, as much as I love the first Creed, I don't know how you feel, Will. I'm just not... The trailers, to me, just aren't selling me on this one being as good as the first, but still going to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't expect another Creed. I think it's probably the best way to go into it. It seems like most of the people I've talked to have enjoyed it on some level. If you just have pretty, tempered expectations, which I'm going to try to do. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I love the Rocky movies, so I'm eager to see it, but I'm not expecting another masterpiece.
Yeah, and it's tough because it's two sequels, right? Two sequels to two, what I would say, pretty great movies. I think the first Wreck-It Ralph is great. I think the first Creed is insanely good. And then we also have Green Book, which I've already seen, and we'll talk about it more next week, but probably in mini reviews. And then we have Robin Hood, which I don't even know what to make of this Robin Hood movie with Taron Egerton from... Edgerton, I guess, from the Kingsman movies, and Jamie Foxx. So, yeah, it's a tough week to fit all of these reviews in. We'll do our best because it's also Thanksgiving. Our Hateful Eight episode is going to be coming out for Thanksgiving, so look for that hitting your podcast feeds. We still haven't figured out though, because some of these movies are coming out Wednesday. This might release on like Saturday or Friday. We still haven't decided when we're going to record, so apologies in advance if this episode doesn't show up. It might show up earlier, it might show up later, because I know we have some conflicts going on that weekend and it's the holidays, so hopefully we can get it out to you, if not next week, the week after. You'll know our thoughts on most, if not all, of these films. But I'll do it for us this week on Cinemaholics. Don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you love your podcast. Hang out with us on Facebook and Twitter. Our social media links are in the show notes, as always, along with our YouTube channel, where you can find standalone reviews and archived reviews of our show. And if you have any questions, comments, personal suggestions, or jokes, email us anytime at cinemaholicspodcast@gmail.com. You can find more episodes of this podcast starting this week. You'll be able to find us on Adam Insider. Just go to adamtickets.com and check out the movie news. And please support best friend of the pod, Alicia Grauso, who is doing some exciting stuff on that website. Very proud to be affiliated with her. And that'll do it for us this week. From the Internet California, I'm John Agroni.
And for the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton.
For Tyler Carlin and Maverick Hines, we'll see you next time.